We're rolling then.
We're rolling. Okay. So once we clean, polish, and finish the dentures, it comes the time for try it into Mr. Dentures again. Okay? So in the clinical process of making a remount cast, this is what we're gonna do in this case specifically. We're gonna try the dentures in. Right? And we're gonna ask Mr. Dentures to bite down. Many times we would not have or we would not find, because teeth may shift during the processing, because the MMR records were not taken correctly, or some other stuff that can happen throughout the time of setting up teeth, making the wax trying, and the final delivery. And many times we have to do something we call the remount cast. So we're teaching you this time to do remount cast on the patient. And what we're gonna do is, because when they process the denture, your master cast is no bueno no more, right? We're gonna fabricate one. In order for me to get an estimate or a ballpark maxillomandibular record, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a bite registration on Mr. Dentures Rodriguez. That's the first thing we're doing. Just like what we did on the wax trying, right? And this is gonna give me the relationship between the upper and the lower right now. And remember, if it's got like a big high spot or something, I want to record that so I can take this to the articulator and start grinding it down. So I'm gonna close it, and if you see it's not in the best occlusion, I just need a ballpark idea or a upper and lower relation so I can mount this lower. How do you mount this upper normally? We use the universal mounting table, right? But we always need something to correlate that upper with the lower. In this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a bite registration that will lock these two models in so I can have them perfectly in my articulator. This articulator, okay. Anyways, so once I have that, I'm gonna go ahead and proceed to do something we call the remount cast. In order to make the remount cast, there is so many ways, like we always say, there's 1,000 ways to kill a fly. We're going to show you a very easy and simple way to do this. You can use any putty that you have. You have putty in the lab. You have putty from Dr. Yu's class, Preclinical Fix. And what you need to do is to get a little bit of putty. I'm going to do the lower first, and then we'll do the upper. I don't want much. What's the main? In order for me to know what do I need to do, I need to visualize the final product. And what I need, it's just a base where I can mount this. What I need is this middle part right there. That's what we call the remount cast. I have to make a cast so I can have these mounted on there, right? But I don't want to go to the trouble of putting stone and all this stuff again and getting it all dirty, because I've been working very hard on this thing, right? I've been working very hard to make it nice and pretty and shiny and you know, all this other stuff. So what I need basically is something that I can take on and off, snap it in and out easily, okay? In order to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put some putty and you can put putty. You can put in dosuki. There is a way where they do what's the name of that stuff, Wally?
The pumice and
they do
plaster.
The pumice and plaster. They do
paper towels.
Paper towels. They do
wax.
some other stuff. Wally and I like this one because it's very easy and very simple way to do this. Basically, what I need is my periphery nice and clean and open. And pretty much what I'm doing is I'm taking off any retentive part with this putty. I still have some leftovers. I'm gonna use, did you see how much I used? I used very, very, very small amount. I'm gonna do both because I still have putty. And these things are expensive. So, look, again, the only thing I'm looking is to fill up the ridge and to get the periphery right there where I need it. This is what I'm looking for, guys. Once I have that, once I have these two, can you take a closer look there?
Yep.
It's not rocket science. We're not changing a heart valve. Okay, we're just doing Remount Cast. So doesn't have to be very, very specific. Hold on to those. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna mix some stone, and I'm going to submerge this into a putty, into a
patty.
Patty or a cookie, I call it.
Yeah.
Right? You can do this like this. You can even fold it in half, so it's easier for you to see it. Look at this. You can fold it in half, so it'll fit right there. You can fit this. Basically, what we need, you can use, I think you guys have a mold. You see how this one has like a mold?
Base former.
I think you have some base formers in your kit. If you want to use those, go ahead and use them. Okay? I'm just gonna show this way to do it. Now you're gonna take. You stay there. I'm gonna make some mounting stone or plaster.
Yeah, just plasters. You want something soft, actually, because if it does get trapped in an undercut, you want to be able to get it off without breaking the acrylic.
This is exactly. This is very a very soft and inexpensive way to do this. Before I submerge this into the plaster, I'm gonna leave the plaster right here. I want to do a coat of Vaseline. Don't forget about the Vaseline, y'all. I think it was too much. So I just want a coat of Vaseline that will prevent from locking. Right there. Okay, now that I have the Vaseline here, and I have my hands full of Vaseline, I'll do my patty.
Patty, yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Cookie, whatever.
Cookie, yeah, I like cookie. It's a very white cookie. Right? And on this cookie, do you see the consistency? It's not a runny cookie, right? It's pretty
firm. Yeah.
Firm, yes, and I can even wait a little bit longer.
You don't want a denture to sink in it.
Right? So So I don't want this to sink. So because I can still wait a little bit longer, I'm gonna make the lower already. That way you're seeing this on real time, prime time. Oops. So the Remount Cast, and that's an important fact, is made in the clinic for next year. Whenever you go next year, you make the Remount Cast prior to the delivery of the denture. So you show up to the clinic with the Remount Cast.
And the upper can be mounted all, ahead of time.
Right.
But they're using the universal standard.
Exactly. So I'm doing this, and I'm also doing both parties on real time at the same time. So let's see the consistency of this one. This one is getting very good consistency already. I can place my denture right there. I don't want this to sink. I want just to copy, guys, this is important. I just want this to copy the periphery of this. So the time I take it on and off, I have always a stable place to have this without getting locked. Okay? In the back, maybe you can go a little bit like this. It doesn't really matter much if you don't have the whole periphery on. As long as you have a little bit of the palate and some of the buccal portion of it, you're on the good side. You can also maybe take a Q-tip and go around it just to alleviate a little bit. If you sink it by accident, you end up sinking it a little bit. It's going to be hard for you to take it off. So you come here.
Yeah, you lock the denture into the plaster if it sinks very much, particularly that lower.
Yes.
When you do that lower, that lingual flange can really get into that plaster, and then you've got no fun.
It's very
getting
hard.
it off, and you hate to do it, and you hear a crack sound and realize you just broke the denture before it's even been in the patient's mouth.
And what happens if you break the denture before it even goes to the patient's mouth? You have to redo the whole thing, my friend. So that's not a fun thing to happen. So this one here, look, if it's too runny, just take your time. Go chit chat a little bit, do whatever you need to do. But if you put it right now here, it's just gonna sink. And if it sinks, then you're in deep trouble. Because all the work that you've been doing, it goes to nothing. I'm gonna pause it just because this is taking a little bit too long, and I don't want you guys to get bored. So I'm just gonna pause it for this to wait to get a little bit harder. Oh shoot, this is
set. This is what you do when you wait too long.
You vibrate it a little bit. This can go in the bloopers. There you go. Anyways, so once we have this one, in a good stage, maybe it's not fully cured or fully set, but right now it's pretty good for us to start working or keep working on this. Probably if you get a little too locked in it, you don't want to try to take it out right now, because the stone is not fully set yet. But right now, if you use a knife, you can always kind of like get a little bit off of it before it hardens a little bit more, and it's hard for you to take it off. So right now it's a good time to just get it right there up to the edges. So how far am I going? Whenever you start seeing the frenums, you see it? I think you're right there, okay? That's how far you're going. Whenever you start seeing the frenums, that means you're very close to the edge of it, and you're gonna make sure it doesn't get locked. Also, you can also bring it to the model trimmer here and trim it down the excess of it. Maybe the height, so it'll fit. Making sure, remember, I think we never mentioned this before, but the base, I want this base to be perfectly parallel to my plane of occlusion, okay? So how do I achieve that? Well, you come over here, and then from up here, you kind of like use something flat, let's say something like this, something flat, that will give you an idea of that way this part here gets flat or gets flush to the occlusion plane. This is how we have Remount Cast. Now these Remount Cast need to go where? We need to remount this over here. But it's kind of not stable enough, right? So I want to make sure this fits. If it fits correctly, I'm good. I want to be at 0. And if this doesn't get very, stable, I can always use some rope wax. Or even the wax, the boxing wax I used to make my patty or my cookie. Kind of like mix up a little bit right here, right? Put it right there. Make sure I see where my midline is. Remember, in the universal mounting table you got your midline and everything. Then in there you kind of like locked this.
Of course, you might have a little metal fence still with your,
right,
universal table. That claps down on the front.
Those metal fences are more gone than. But yeah, if you still have it, use it.
Yeah, they're easy to lose.
Right. The whole idea of this is just to have a stable denture right there.
And the lines on the table help you center it.
Yes.
Even on the buckle of the
buckle
teeth.
cuff. Yes, thank you.
It'll you can kind of position it with those lines.
Definitely. Then we're ready to mount this. And I don't think we have a video for that, so let me show you just what I do, what we do when we're mounting these opera casts. For this one specifically, I'm not going to use any Vaseline, or I'm not going to index it, because I don't need to do that for this mounting, for this remount cast. But if it was my master cast, of course I would have 1, 2, 3, maybe even a cross on here, so I can index it. In case of this breaks off, then I would put it back in a very predictable way. In this case, I'm not using that, and I'm just gonna mount this with some plaster. As we've seen before, we got a not running mixture of plaster right here, right? I want to do first the retentive portion of my mounting plate that I previously cleaned and made sure that it sits flush onto there and it has the magnet on, okay? Do you see how I'm going onto those little retentions right there? I need to make sure I get those retentions so this plaster stays there. Again, guys, if your plaster is too runny, just wait for it a little bit, okay? Just wait for it a little bit. You can add up a little bit more powder or just wait for it and it'll start setting within a few minutes. What I like to do, then I put a little bit here. If it was a regular, another kind of cast, I would Vaseline and I would index this. In this case, we're not doing any of that. I'm putting a little bit more on that top, maybe a little bit more here. I'm just doing it so you can tell and you see how these two just close in there. Make sure you push this all the way down. If you don't push that all the way down, then you'll be in trouble, right? You will not have an accurate mounting. So make sure you take it all the way down. If you vibrate the stone, it'll just give and give a little bit more and more, and you would not have a problem. You see how easy we are doing this? After we finish this, we're almost ready to even make it nice and beautiful.
This part you can do before you see the patient. You know,
this part is very important, right? Because then you don't have to mount this over again. You can mount this one on in your house prior to seeing the patient. You have it there. Once you wait for that, maybe we'll do the lower in this same video. I take it out. You see my posterior flanges are not all the way up. I don't mind in this case because I have all this buccal part very well seated. And if these buccal portion are very well seated, I'm gonna have a very stable remount cast, okay? So it's important to have all this buccal portion of it nice and submerged there. Not submerged, no, not submerged, right? Just barely touching. So how far down do I go? How far do I trim down? Until I see the frenums. You see the frenum marks? So go down, keep going down until you see those frenum marks. Look at them, right there. Can you see them, Wally?
Yep.
Okay. On the lingual, same thing. Be careful, don't lock it on the lingual until you see that frenum mark right there. Look at it. Now I'm taking a tube, model trimmer. You guys have nicer model trimmers upstairs. Pretty much want about 3 millimeters around, you know, a good thickness. Oops. And this is my lower remount cast. Okay? If by any chance it locks out or it comes off, you'll see. I'm going to try to take this one off just for demonstration purposes before I remount it. Look. This is what you're gonna do.
Well, you'd have to take it off before the
Right,
patient is,
right.
because you got to take the bite. We took the bite ahead of time, but just for the video. But you would have all this ready to go. You see the patient, deliver the dentures, you take the bite, then you're going to mount the lower. But this, obviously, you can't put it in the patient's mouth with the putty in there.
So at this point, you're right. You want to make it right now, so we follow the. At this point,
Yep.
that's fine. I have. What am I looking for on this Remount Cast? What's exactly what I'm looking for? I'm looking for the periphery. A good periphery all around the denture. That when I put it in, kind of snaps in, right? And it's nice and stable. You see that? Look, I take it off and it comes off. I put it back in and it snaps in place. I have to use a knife to take it on and off. Make sure it goes in all the way down like that. You see how it clicks in? If it's not clicking in, you can always use your knife and probably start grinding off some of these retentive areas until you have a good remount cast that it's stable and stays there. Hold on, don't go anywhere. Now this one here should be pretty done, yeah. At this point, you have this upper already with this upper mounted, right? Let's take this one off as well. Take my putty off. And what do I get here? Look, I get all this palette. And pretty much I have most of the periphery right there. So when I put this back in, it locks in place. And I know, if you can see it through, look, it's right here. This part here is in contact with the plaster. And also, all these is in contact with the plaster right there. Okay? Now, I have this one here, right? What's the next step? I flip this over. Sorry for the mess. I flip this one over. I get my bite records here. Get my other bite record here. And I got this, right? How do I fix this? How do I make sure this is going to stay there while I'm mounting? Look how wiggly it is. So what do? You get your heat gun, right? You get some wax, you get your heat gun, you get some I don't have my heat gun, but you do the heat gun here, you lock it in place, right? And then you just proceed to mount that lower model.
Because what you do in clinic is you would take the dentures off, deliver the dentures, take the bite, and then you go back to do this step.
Remember,
we're out of sequence a little bit.
Remember how what we did? We delivered the dentures, right? We took the bite registration, and with this bite registration is giving me exactly how Mr. Dentures Rodriguez is biting. And now I'm going to adjust my lingualized occlusion on it. For next time, I want, that's good.
You know,